Hey, hey. Hey, Instagram. How you doing? It's Gina here, Too Much Woman. It's been a minute. I wanted to come on just for a few moments and say hello. I have a couple thoughts for you. I was just on Facebook. I'm across platforms. I was just on Facebook doing a live, and I thought, let me come over here and share a couple of thoughts. I put a question in my stories earlier today, and the question was, how many of you have something that you want to put out into the world, but you're afraid? And the response was so overwhelming that I decided to come on and give you a couple of thoughts. Say hi if you're here. Hey, Neoclise. Who else is on here? Jam sessions with Carrie. How you doing? Izzy, how you doing? Hi everybody. I can't see all the names. So I was just on Facebook. I wanted to come on Instagram just quickly and give you a couple of thoughts because I know there are a lot of you who especially maybe during these times when you have maybe a little bit more time or a little bit more perspective on your life and there's something that you want to put out into the world. I work with people who want to play bigger. I work with people who come to a point where they've decided that enough is enough and they want to share. And they could be sharing a speech. It could be sharing a creative idea like art or poetry or writing. It could be a business idea. It could be just speaking up at work. It could be going for a job. It could be speaking up in relationship. But in some way, in some aspect, in some part of their life, they want to play bigger. And they come to me. And that's where a lot of my content is birthed. From people who don't want to go silently, don't want to go gently into the night and regret not showing up fully. So if this is you, give me some love. Sometimes I want to hide forever. I know. So do I. I want to start off by saying, hey, Dean. I want to start off by saying that if you're feeling, first of all, the number one reason that people don't put themselves out there is that it's mostly across the board that they're afraid of how people are going to respond. They're afraid of rejection. They're afraid people aren't going to get it. They're afraid that it's not going to have the impact that they're hoping it would have. They're afraid that people are going to criticize them and judge them. Okay. So the first thing I want to say is that's absolutely normal. It's absolutely normal. And anyone who tells you that they don't really care what other people think, I'm going to call bullshit on that. I've been in the public sphere for over 25 years, and I will tell you, I've worked with some of the most amazing speakers, authors, some of the most prominent people, public figures that you've seen out there. And I will tell you, every single one of them cares. And I think when you don't care, that's actually problematic. When you actually really don't care, that's problematic. But go to my YouTube, I have lots of videos on that. But today what I want to specifically talk about is, what do you do in that space where you want to put something out when there's like a wellspring of inspiration where you really feel like you want to do something or share something, or it could be anything, but you're held back by the fear of what other people think. So if this is you, say hey and let me know. I want to give you two questions to think about, just two, and then I'm going to pop off. The first question is a very broad question. And the first question is actually really useful for almost any situation where you're trying to make a decision and you don't know what to do. I actually have a whole masterclass built around this one question, but I'm going to give it to you because I know you can handle it. So this one question, and it sounds very simple, but I don't want you to answer it from the neck up using your brain. I want you really just to sit in your whole body and answer this question. Think of something that you're undecided about, and I want you to ask yourself this question: what would someone who loves themselves do? What would someone who loves themselves do? When we ask this question, what happens is we start to distill down to the bare essence of our worthiness. If I really love myself, what decision would I make in this situation? Which direction would I go? What would I lean into? Would I show up in this way? Would I speak up in this relationship? Would I go for the job? Would I talk to my boss? Would I write the book? Would I do the thing? Would I shoot my shot? What would someone who loves themselves do? So that's a broader question, but it's actually very powerful. And when I'm working with someone, I often ask them throughout the day to check in, even if it's little things like, what should I eat for breakfast? What should I do with my spare time? Should I take a nap? Should I go for a walk? Whatever it is, what would someone who loves themselves do? So that's question number one. But I have another perspective I want to give you, particularly if you want to put something out into the world and you're feeling, hi, Muse of Creativity, I'm not afraid, just feel too quiet. Tell me more about that. I don't know what you mean, I feel too quiet. I want to hear more about that. Here come the floodgates. Good, let them come. Good. This is the time, this is the place, this is the moment. No coincidence. I want you to ask yourself this question because it's a question that I ask myself over and over and over again. Every time I post, every time I put myself out there, every time I push the boundaries a little bit and I'm uncomfortable with how I'm showing up and I'm worried about what people will say. Here's what I ask myself. You ready? I ask myself, what is more important to me than other people's approval? What's more important to me than being understood? What's more important to me than other people liking me? What's more important to me than external markers of success? What's more important to me than not telling my story or not sharing my creativity or not sharing my gift? What's more important to me? And the clearer that you can get around that answer, it's going to help you to expand into a more courageous space. What's more important to me? Because for me, I'll be very frank with you. If you've been following me for a while, you'll notice that I have really shifted in how I show up. I've become way more daring, way more provocative. And in that space, I have to get really, really clear with myself about what is more important to me than people's judgment, than their criticism, than people not getting it, than people whispering about me, than people having a bad opinion of me. What's more important? I will tell you for me, what is way more important for me is that I know every single day that I am showing up in my highest self, in my fullest capacity. I have such an absolute fear of going to my grave not having fully expressed in this lifetime, not having fully told the truth in this lifetime. I do not want to live small. I did it. I felt the repercussions of that and I can't go back. And as scary as it is to put myself out there all the time, and it is very scary, what is more important to me is speaking my truth. What's more important to me is the one person who hears what I have to say. And that's why I post in my stories some of the messages that I get from you, because I want you to see it's way more important to me that I'm able to put my head down on my pillow at night knowing that I gave it everything than the fear of not. So that's for me. Now your answer might be different. I don't know what your answer is. That's something for you to contemplate, but you got to know what is more important to you than what other people think. Not everybody gets me. And I've had to really relinquish the control I have over what other people think and what other people feel about a 40-year-old mother posting provocative pictures or having an OnlyFans account where they think it's all nudity, which it's not, or whatever story I tell. I've had to release that, and I've had to say to myself, now I still think about it. But what I say to myself is there's something more important. And what's more important to me is that I'm honest. What's more important to me is that I have integrity with myself and I know that I'm sharing what I have come here to share. For me, that's more important. I'm expressing with my full capabilities, and now I'm living with these itchy ass facilities. And I don't care if you all agree with my bikini. I get straight and meditate like a bikini. Wait, I don't know the context of this poetry. That's so funny. I love it. I'm not afraid to speak. I'm working on trying to get heard. I don't care what the world thinks of me. Okay. Yeah. And you know what? I think it's interesting. I want to talk a little bit about that before I go though. It's interesting because I want you to care. For me, honestly, to say I don't care what people think, I don't care at all what people think is disingenuous for me. Because the truth is, I do care. And I think the only people who completely don't care are like psychopaths and like maybe Donald Trump. Like there's some capacity. It's biological. We are wired to care because our survival literally depends on people understanding. However, the caveat is not everyone will understand and not everyone will care. And I'm okay with that. The other thing too is when you're creating anything, there is an element of hoping that people will understand the message. That's why I come on lives and that's why I clarify with my content, because I want to make sure as much as possible that I'm being clear, because I do care that you get it. I wouldn't come on here and speak Greek or Spanish to you and then be like, I don't care if they get it. But because my whole purpose for showing up is that we're communicating on some level, right? So there is an element of caring, but my delivery and the fact that I show up isn't tied to that, isn't tied to any external marker. And that's why this is a little bit different from when people say, what's your why? I want to tease that apart, okay? When people say, what's your why? Usually the why is tied to an external marker. So I've heard people, like when I work with people and they use that language of why. They say, my why is I want to be a best-selling author. My why is I want to travel the world. My why is I want my kids to be proud of me. My why is I want to make X amount of dollars. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. But notice how those are all external markers of success. When I ask myself the question, what is more important, then notice how it's a mirror that's reflecting back to me. It's talking to me and my values, what's important to me, what's of integrity to me. And that's a very different question. And so I want you to think about what is more important to me than the thing that I fear, than other people's criticism or judgment or misunderstanding. What's more important to you? And I think it's a really good place to start. Couple that with what would someone who loves themselves do, and you're a powerhouse. Okay, so I want the world to be a better place. So if you feel that you wanting the world to be a better place is more important than people's judgment of you or what other people say or people misunderstanding you, then that would be true for you. Yeah, so it's reflective of you. So I want to live in a better world. If you believe that what you're doing is creating a better world, then that's fine. And that's good. It's amazing to be able to move past other people's judgment by being yourself and being true to yourself. That's the best feeling of the world. Yeah, it is. And I want to be clear. I want to be clear with my experience. I never want to sugarcoat my experience, because I think there's a very fine line between saying, yeah, don't care what other people think. Don't give a fuck. Just go for it. Do it. Put your blinders on. There's an element of that that's disingenuous. And I want to be clear that the experience that I've personally had, particularly speaking with some of the most incredible speakers in the world, is they all come off the stage and they look at each other and they're like, was that okay? Was that good? Did I do okay? Like, do you think people got it? So it's human nature, right? To want to feel like you've created impact and to care about what other people think. But what I also know about these people who are living most in alignment with themselves is their priority. Their priority is their truth. Their priority is being in integrity with themselves. Does that make sense? I stand in my truth, says Pam, and some people have an issue. Yeah. 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 So that's all I wanted to share. Those two questions. I want you to just hold them dear, maybe play with them a little bit. Sometimes it's really helpful if you're, sometimes we're so accustomed to using our logical mind to answer questions. A great exercise is to take one of these questions and to actually use your non-dominant hand to journal. So if you're right-handed, use your left. If you're left-handed, use your right. Because what we do when we use our non-dominant hand is we bypass the wiring that connects us to our automated response or our logical response. So I'm right-handed. So if I'm going to journal some of these questions, like what would someone who loves themselves do, or what's more important to me than being liked and accepted, then I'm going to use my left hand and just write for a couple pages and see what comes up. So that's a little trick for you. That's a little trick. Anyways, thanks for sticking around. I just wanted to say, hey, I'm not often live on Instagram, but I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And I'll add the full version of this that I recorded on Facebook. I'll put it on YouTube for those of you who've missed it. So thanks for being here. Big love your way and good luck with your questions. Hope that helps.